Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? I'm very happy to have a couple of colleagues that are joining me to another Teaching Tidbits live episode. We've been very happy to have a number of episodes this past few weeks and to have conversations about how this transition has been impacting all of us. And I'm happy to have Laura McGowan and Jason Pelosi, who are going to be telling us who they are, what they do, and how they're feeling today. So let's start. Let's start with Laura. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. So could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what do you do, and how you're feeling today?
Okay. I'm Laura McGowan. I'm the director of the ASAP program at Hostos, and I've been at the college since 2011. This year, I guess we'll get to more of this when you start asking questions, but this year we're in one of our major expansions, so we can talk about that later.
Excellent. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, I'm Jason Pelosi. I'm the director of the Student Success Coaching Unit. I've been at the college for about 4 years or so. Very excited to be part of this. I think, our office is involved in a lot of the different social media and kind of digital ventures that we're trying to do right now. So I'm very happy to be part of this conversation.
And thank you both for accepting this invitation. I'm sure the people that are connecting and the people that are going to be watching this episode of Teaching Tidbits are going to learn a lot and is going to get a number of tips on our conversations today. And as Laura was mentioning, a lot is going on. There's many things that have been changing, many things that we have been had to face, readapt, change, reinvent. So the first question that I have for you is, about your work responsibilities and how that changed during this transition. Let's start with Laura, and then we go to Jason.
Okay. I think I feel like over the past week or so, things have started to quiet down a little and feel like I'm probably more in line with my usual responsibilities. Of course, at the beginning, there was a lot of working with all of the individual teams to make sure that everybody was converting everything to online, to figuring out how we're going to do everything because honestly, everything changed. All of our meetings were moved to Zoom, and then some of those things have changed. Recently, they added a password to Zoom, so we have to make sure that we have different ways of notifying students. If they click on a link that's a reminder, for example, from Sign Up Genius, then they don't have the Zoom link anymore. So it's always a matter of, okay, well, we'll take that reminder off so that students aren't going to that link because it doesn't have the new password. So it seems like it's always been something that we kind of need to catch up on to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as possible. Just the everyday work that advisors do of, helping students to register. I'm trying to think, they're leaning over students, helping them to, register for courses. And it's complicated, especially for new students coming in. So I think trying to find ways of presenting information in little videos that we've created and putting those online, moving our summer orientation to different modules on Blackboard, and whether we're going to do things in asynchronous or synchronous. So there's just been a lot of decisions, but I feel like now things are starting to level off and we're kind of getting into the groove. I imagine Jason feels pretty much the same way.
Let's hear from Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I actually concur quite a bit. I would say the beginning, maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks, it was the hardest adjustment for the office. At that time, it was more about assessing the needs of the students and kind of being the mouthpiece for the college, figuring out what technology needs needed to be met, not only devices, but Wi-Fi, and trying to coordinate the campus under one way of doing it was very difficult. For the rest of the office elements, we've been trying to kind of upgrade ourselves as remote, I guess, savvy as possible. We've moved our whole appointment system into Succeeded Hostos. We are expanding our use of Schedule Builder, Degree Planner, and we are having even a larger presence on our social media and our website than we've ever had before. Expanding on ideas with Zoom and Blackboard collaboration for our new students in orientation has also been another thing that we're trying to work on. So quite a lot of things all at the same time, also in dealing with the pandemic situation.
And as you said, there's a new thing happening every day. Or there's some things that we have to that worked before that are not working anymore, or whether there's something changed and now we have to do some things differently, and also identifying how the needs from our students are and how we could best respond to those needs. And you're managing teams that are directly connected to students, all right? And you have had first you have information from firsthand from these interactions with students. What challenges have you been facing as administrator in this whole process? Let's start again with Laura, and then we go to Laura. You have your mic muted.
Is it, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would say, that while we would usually have some challenges with students not being in touch with us, we had the opportunity when we were in person to do classroom visits, or I think even for the advisors to just snag students in the hallways. I think, and just being worried, not knowing what's going on with some of the students that we haven't heard from. I think a lot of students were just kind of, themselves trying to acclimate to this new normal and, kind of disappeared for a little bit. But I think a lot of them are coming back right now. They're signing up for summer classes. They have been in touch with their advisors. So I think things are starting to get a little bit better. I think with the challenges with bringing brand new students on, as I mentioned, ASAP is supposed to be expanding this year. And we usually bring in about 400 to 500 new students, and we're expected to bring in 800 to 900 new students this time. Murphy's Law, this would be the semester that we're set to expand. Some of the little quirks that we're trying to get through is, for example, when we set up a Zoom session or the information session and students are there and they're participating, but they're not showing their face. So then we set them up on a future, Zoom appointment with an intake advisor. And, the advisor's job is during a 30 to 45 minute appointment to get to know the student and really engage the student. I think it's really hard for advisors to do that when they're talking to an icon rather than the student, showing his or her face. So we don't want to be heavy-handed about it. So we try to say during the information sessions, or even when they're working with the peer mentors to do some scheduling, that it would be nice for them to turn on the camera so that, the advisors can get to know them, that we're trying to simulate as closely as possible, to an actual in-person advising session. So those are some of the, little challenges I think that the advisors are facing. And I think, for me, it's just the unknown about, in terms of recruitment, are we going to be able to get to that number? In a usual recruiting season, we know what to expect. But while I think it's a good time for college students to be signing up for college because they might as well get their degree while we're waiting for, hopefully the world to go back to as normal as it can. I don't know if students agree, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like the job prospects are good so that high school students would be finding jobs, but you never know what people are planning. So there's just a lot of, there's a big quotient of unknowns right now.
Let's hear from Jason.
I'm going to take a similar approach as Laura did and talk a little bit from the advisor perspective and then my personal perspective. So from our coaches, I think one of the biggest challenges that they were going through, and I think we continue to go through it, is trying to meet the students where they are. Not every student is going to be able to use the same interface, whether it be Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is, because of their home situation and their home life. So trying to be adaptable as best as we can and have the coach be able to meet the student in whatever format works best for them, given the climate. I think that's been one of the most difficult things. Some students can only communicate via email or text, and some feel more comfortable, doing it through an audio or a video call. But trying to kind of meet them and connect with them has definitely been a big part of the challenge. For myself personally, I don't think I realized how much of a connection I was having with my peers and my staff in an informal way through the regular workday. Just little small check-ins here or there, walking around the office, poking my head into a cubicle or having someone do the same for my cubicle. When you don't have that and you don't have those small moments, it's much more difficult to feel like you're connected to your staff members. I have a pretty large office. There's about 30 of us in the unit. So it's definitely impossible for me to check in on all of them on any given day. So I try to rotate and keep myself as available as possible. But when we were in a physical office, it was much easier to just kind of drop in or have people drop in and just say hi. Part of that being a big challenge, and the fact that many of them, and myself included, are just trying to find answers for a lot of things that there aren't answers to yet. So not being able to plan and not really being able to move forward at times because there isn't an answer to something because we haven't gotten there yet. I think those are some of the bigger challenges that I've been working through.
And it's true. How do you translate the practices, effective practices that you had in the in-person or the face-to-face environment to now? And some tips that have been working for me. It's been creating this um, groups in Microsoft Teams to be able to have meetings and conversations with everybody, knowing that everybody is in that environment. And then if they have questions, they can reach out to me right away, or vice versa if I need someone to be able to have that sense. And you were mentioning earlier about presence, your presence in the social media. So here we have your team from Student Success Coaching Unit in Facebook saying, "Hey, Jason," so they're, so feel free everybody to send questions to Jason and Laura. We're going to be They're going to be answering any questions that you have there. And you started talking about a little bit about how we are connecting with our teams, and it is important to keep fluid communication with our team. How have you been doing this? And you mentioned a few challenges. Any other challenges that you find, or any things that have worked for you to keep this communication fluid as possible? Let's start with Laura and then Jason.
I definitely agree with Jason that you do feel a little bit disconnected, not having that, daily check-in with people, just the camaraderie. We do have a staff meeting every week on Wednesday where we all, everybody's marked it off on the calendar so we can check in. And I think using Microsoft Teams is great. We have like 6 different teams, so that sometimes gets a little overwhelming if you're on all of them. but that's been really great. And we use that function for chatting with different people and just, can you chat now? Can you chat later? So we still have a lot of, face-to-face, virtual contact. I think it's working out pretty well.
Good. Jason?
Twofold. We've tried to keep, or I've tried to keep, as many of our regular meetings, our standing meetings, going as possible. We have a weekly staff meeting. We have a weekly professional development time that sometimes we're using for a professional development. Other times we're using for other purposes to kind of connect with each other. And then we have a series of smaller kind of split up group team meetings within the office that can happen throughout the regular work week. Trying to keep that schedule as much as we possibly could, I think, has helped so that you can anticipate and plan a little bit and follow up on a regular schedule. The format for doing that has really been Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has been a godsend for our office, so much so that even when we go back to more in-person service, we're probably going to be using it a lot for a lot of what we do there, maybe even supplementing for some of the meetings that we might not need to have that we thought we needed to have. But it's been really great to not only be able to post something up there and have people kind of comment and communicate about it in the same environment where you're chatting and having calls and adding files and everything else. I feel like I'm trying to sell the product, but it really has been a great experience for our office.
We have to put a disclaimer that we're not promoting any software or any product. But I think once we find a solution that works, whichever that is for us, then utilizing it's important because it's going to simplify our lives. We have discussed a little bit about the challenges and things that you have been doing, but then we have this reality in where our workspace and our home space, life space, it's become one, right? So, is there are many changes, many things that you have to adapt, and how do we balance all of these changes? How do we balance the work duties, work life, and also your own personal lives in this crisis? Any you know, tips that work for you? How has this been for you?
I think just trying to keep to a regular schedule is very helpful. So I just have, actually, I've never been really good at keeping to the regular schedule. I'm always checking my emails at all. I I have to do better with that. And so I would say that it's not any different than it has been. Um, but I do try to create, this space that I'm always in. And, I have my pretty regular schedule where I'm sitting here. So I'm trying to find my way with it. I was more impressed with the provost answer. She seemed to have struck a good balance, and I'm still working on that a little bit.
Let's hear from Jason to see where we can get tips.
Laura kind of said what I was going to say a little bit about kind of creating and keeping to a regular schedule. So coming up with anything addition on the fly, I've actually turned off notifications on my phone, and it has changed my balance quite significantly. You can't react and pull up something you don't see on your phone or you don't see on your computer. So trying to kind of limit myself to really addressing email or addressing questions via Microsoft Teams or whatever it is during certain time frames. And then when I'm done for the day, I don't get distracted by a notification popping up to kind of throw me back into it. It's been working better for me over the past few weeks, at least.
One of the things that I have been hearing from people, and I was commenting offline with Ernest, there seemed to be a common denominator. Everybody was running and doing exercise, and I say like, well,
No, I'm
it
not running.
it's been helping me every time we had these conversations. It's like, I run. It's like, I might kind of get my additional motivation to start running, so to do some exercise. And I think, this useful tips that work for them, and I might end up running at least a little bit to the downstairs and upstairs, and something like
Uh, Actually, one of the best articles I read in the Times was about how you're not expected to come out of this pandemic as a butterfly. Like you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself because, this is a good test. I mean, supposedly I have more time, right? Because I'm not spending 2 hours a day commuting. But I'm not using that time as I thought I would. And, I'm getting pretty close to retirement. So I could say, oh, when I retire, I will do this, I will do that. I haven't been doing any of those things, honestly. I have been going for more walks in the woods, but, on the weekends because there's not, there's still limited activities that you can do even on the weekends. But no, I haven't taken up running.
no, I've seen a lot more people walking on parks that you will never see.
Yeah.
At least that, I don't know whether it will be connection with the nature. Hopefully, that
Yeah.
is a long-term connection, not just because of this. But I've seen that happening. Um, you have been mentioning a lot of takeaways from this transition, and although this is not over yet, we don't know when this is going to be over, but I think at least we know more than we knew before. And but I wanted to ask you this last question: what takeaways has this transition left you with? Let's go with Laura, and then we go with Jason.
Um, I mean, just, as a person, it's very difficult. I mean, listening to the news last night, thinking that, oh my gosh, maybe this could be years that this is going on. So there's a lot of, I think, sadness. I think my husband and I are totally on a different wavelength. Like I feel like this settled in, the whole idea of it very quickly. And for him, it was kind of like, oh no. And then all of a sudden he realizes, oh yeah, we're in this for the long haul. So we're, trying to operate on the same wavelength. In terms of, my work, I think that, I mean, I feel bad for the students that they're not going to have that, good experience that the students usually have at Hostos. And, just feeling, staff too. I really miss my colleagues. I miss my team. I actually got an email from one of the advisors this morning. I miss you. I miss, I miss, we have a really good team. We have really close relationships. And as much as you talk to people online, it's hard to, have the same kind of thing. And also just, like when we get back, just like I'd want to hug you. I'm not even a hugger, but all of a sudden I'd want to hug you. I can't do it. So I guess, that, just to appreciate what you have when you have it, because you might not always have it. Famous last words.
Thank you, Laura. Jason?
I think one of the things I keep learning over and over again, and I feel like I keep talking to students and staff about over and over again, is really trying to best utilize the resources that you have, not only in your personal life but your work life. The resources can be more than than just access to something or a free account to something. It can be human capital as well. It can be, talk to your supervisors, your peers, talk to your family, talk to your loved ones, friends, because what I'm finding is nothing is worse during all of this than isolation, especially when you need help. And it can, I mean, it can be the more deep and meaningful stuff, but sometimes it's just, I need help trying to figure out something, or I need help, my VPN access to the office is not working, help me, or whatever it is. And in this environment, being so isolated, it adds a layer of frustration and adds a layer of complication and emotion to it. So trying to be okay with asking more questions. I've had this conversation with the vice presidents, presidents. I've had it with anybody that'll talk to me about it, and we're all kind of experiencing a lot of the same stuff, which is just don't be afraid to reach out and don't be afraid to ask questions and use the resources you have.
Those are great pieces of advice, and I think also there was one of the suggestions that came from a person that was in one of these episodes was about making sure that you remember that you have or build your support network, and reach out to your support network to have those conversations, because we are all going through this challenges, and how do we at least have that, even though it's a virtual communication, but how do we have those conversations that we're that are we are going through. And let me just give a couple of share a couple of messages from the coaching unit's Facebook page. We call very differently that balance is a learning process. There is also a message from Babette, who's also connected. Thanks for mentioning the disconnect between you and your spouse. That's happening here and among friends too. Good message to be appreciative. And so, there's great support from the coaching unit group. Great message. And we are.
Well. Yeah.
And then, so that Jason doesn't feel bad, then Babette is saying hello, Jason. And we invite everybody to continue asking questions, or commenting on this video is going to be available right away in the Hostos Facebook channel. And we invite everybody to join us in the next few days. I will share a few more episodes we'll have this semester, and we hope that this conversation was useful for you. I want to thank also Laura and Jason for joining me this time, and hoping that everybody stay safe and stay well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.